Yo, anyone in there? Jeez, Xander, you're totally zoning out.
Huh?
I asked if you'd like anything to drink.
Oh. Yeah, sorry, water's fine.
I'm men's alcoholic. Want to get strong ale?
I'm still on the clock. Tara smiled and grabbed a giant tank and took a humongous chug from it, setting it down. The bubbles from the beverage popped out onto the table.
So am I.
I was at the Thirsty Lion for yet another shift. It would likely be one of my last ones. We were closing in on the murderers. At this rate, knowing there were 3 mages, we had to wrap this up before there were 4, 5, 10, 100. We needed to put a stop to this. It's different. Tipsy waitresses showing a little cleavage get more tips than a drunk chef who can't even chop onions without slicing his fingertips off.
Oh, come on. You said it yourself, you're not staying here much longer. Why not live a little?
Maybe on my last shift.
Suit yourself. I'm not one to peer pressure.
Had about 10 minutes left of service before cleaning up. Service didn't take long. It zoomed by in a flash. The owner was cleaning out the mugs from behind the bar, and Tara and I were cleaning the actual tables. Once finished, we sat at the bar together with the owner.
What'll it be, kiddos?
You know the answer to that.
Right. Now what about you, Cook?
Water, if you please.
Light beer coming up.
He poured an amber liquid into my mug and slid it to me. I smiled sheepishly and took a drink. Over the next half hour, we told stories of customer service, talking about how dumb people can be. Of course, Tara and the owner's stories were far more interesting and hilarious than mine.
After he decided it wasn't a fight he'd win, he simply got pissed off and left. Later that night, I went home, and I found him at my house throwing rocks at my place. So I went up to him and I kicked his drunk ass down the hill to my house, and he never came back.
Holy shit, did you get your house repaired?
Heh, as if anyone would come fix a few scratches and pits in my wall. And besides, that's nothing. The same guy followed Tara home one night after service.
What? Holy shit, was everything okay?
Oh, yeah. This was a while ago. I used to, let's just be honest here. I used to flirt with the guy customers a lot more than I do now. I was poor and new to town and needed some extra gold for furniture, so I decided to start buttoning my shirt 1 button less and making bedrooms that every guy could. I didn't want to sleep with them, any of them. I just wanted some extra money. It worked for the most part. Most men understood I was putting on performance and were flattered and entertained by it. So they gave me some extra gold for my trouble. It was nice. Then I tried it on this guy. He was, for the lack of a better word, involuntarily celibate. I wish there was a shorter way to say that. Maybe if we combine the 2 words and make it shorter, like, incel? I don't know. I'm not a dictionary. Anyways, this guy was classless. One of those, she had it coming, did you see what she was wearing kind of guys. I came up to his table, did my whole performance. He was being weird, so I stopped. He grabbed my arm and said some weird shit, so I left. Boss gave me the night off. I headed home. Saw that he was following me, so I made a curve to my friend's house instead. He kept peeking in the windows, so my friend went outside and beat him with her shoe, and he ran off.
Hell of a woman. Sorry you had to deal with that, though.
It's all good. He's banned from entering, so he won't bother us anymore.
Reminds me of a story I told my youngins once. The story of the fox and the forest sprite.
I haven't heard that one.
It's been too many years since I told it, so I don't remember everything. But there was a fox that was entranced by this forest sprite, who beckoned it into the forest. The sprite gave the fox a gift. The fox came back the next day for a gift. The fox grew greedy, wanted more and more each time, before the sprite called all the other sprites to chase the fox out of the forest. It was much cuter when I told it all those years ago. The moral, of course, is that greed leads to nothing good.
My dad told me a story in the same vein when I was young. Something about a mouse and a cookie. More of the story, if you give a mouse a cookie... I don't know. Basically, if you keep giving people things, they're gonna keep asking for more. Greed was a big thing in these kids' stories, huh?
Yes, indeed. What about you, Cook? Hear any good stories as a kid?
Memories of my dad that I look back on fondly were few and far between, but one thing I'll never ever forget about him was his willingness and even in some cases eagerness to tell me stories. My favorites were stories about, well, heroes. I loved hearing stories of old about people who rise up to the occasion and show bravery and courage to combat a great evil. However, not all of his stories were so grandiose. One in particular I remembered quite well. The wilds.
The wilds? You mean like jungles?
No. There was a race of beings called the wilds. Ancient forest spirits of great, incredible power. They controlled the very elements around them, but rarely used them. They were watchers over the forests and the creatures that inhabited them.
Sounds like a fun story.
The thing is, I believe the wilds were real. I know it sounds crazy, but I don't know. I just have this feeling they once existed.
What about them was so enchanting?
They never used their powers to harm or destroy, only to offer life and ease to the creatures around them. There were 4 of them, I think. They looked like human in nature, but never wore clothing like we did. Beautiful creatures with piercing, glowing eyes that gave off a sense of warmth. Long, flowing hair. They were ethereal. The wild of water coursed the rivers and helped them flow to bring water to those who needed it. And the water of earth shaped the land and the caves to offer shelter. The water of wind controlled the weather and the storms to make it safe for the inhabitants and treacherous for those who would disturb the peace. And the wild of fire brought warmth and hearth to all that would accept it. Then, humans came. Deforestations to build cities, chopping down trees, hunting the animals. It drove the wilds away. I can't claim to be innocent of this. I live in a large city and I do hunt for food, but nevertheless, the wilds left. They did all they could do to protect, to preserve. And it did them no good. They refused to use their awesome might on humans. Except for one. Wild of Fire. The Wild of Fire watched as a group of humans destroy the home of innocent animals and let loose a great forest fire that did far more damage than any of the humans could. As a result, the wilds agreed to never use their powers to harm again. As a result, when more humans came, the wilds could not protect anyone. And they left and never returned. I've heard they all died. I've heard one of them remains. No one knows for sure. Because the only people that have seen the wilds have long since died. It always fascinated me, though. I wonder if I'll ever meet one. The last of the wilds.
I believe you will. You seem like the type to go on an adventure such as that.
Just make sure you don't get yourself killed in the process. I'd like to rehire you one day.
I'll take note of that. But for now, I got an equally dangerous journey ahead of me. Maybe when I'm done, I'll come back for you guys.
I'd like that. I've never had a boyfriend before, you know?
Oh, wow, that sucks. Hope you find one.
hopeless.
In any case, a toast to Xander Roy. Hell of a chief, hell of a knight, hell of a guy.
To Xander.
If you guys say so, then I guess maybe I'll have another drink. I stuck around until about an hour after close, having a few light drinks. Truth be told, I've never gotten drunk. After my dad had his fair share when I was young and ultimately led him to his death, I grew sour on the idea of getting full force smashed. A few drinks, if responsible, was perfectly harmless though. I walked home with terror on my mind. Looking back, she was definitely flirting with me. At least I think she was. But at this current point in time, I had absolutely no idea that wasn't even an option. She made me feel so warm and fun, and she was just incredible. I was sincerely considering their offer to come back and work in Xander still. I wanted to be a knight, but let's be realistic. Would I ever? Even if I completed the mission, Edith would likely get all the credit, right? What's the point in the end? Either way, I had to complete the actual mission before I made my decision. I finally made it home. Well, home. Into the inn room across town. We didn't stay at the Thirsty Lion. It was a tavern, but it was only a tavern. No inn rooms available, at least not from what I knew. We stayed at the only inn in Xander still. I reached my room and sighed. I was late. I would definitely be up early to rise due to being my turn to look for clues. I put the key in the door, my head down, trying to be silent, as Edith was the lightest sleeper in the world and would surely give me shit for being so late. I opened it silently, snuck inside, and closed the door. I locked it and let out a sigh of relief. Whew. All right. Time to hit the hay.
Good, you're here. Team meeting time.
Oh, God. Why? I looked at Edith, who was sitting between Iron and Phineas. By this hour, they should all be in their PJs, but they were dressed in their normal attire. Phineas had his tattered black and gold robe, Iron in her tunic, pants, and hooded cloak, and Edith in her chainmail and armor. They looked ready for a fight. What are you guys doing, role-playing?
It's time, Xander.
Time? Time for what, bed? I agree. Now, if you don't mind...
Time to leave, boy. We're leaving Xander still tonight.
The hell are you guys talking about? We're not done here, are we?
We have a mission to accomplish, and it's high time we get that mission done.
But the murderer's still out there! I mean, don't you think we should...
We found the murderer, or specifically murderers. 3 of them, and we've identified all 3.
You said that last time. 3, but... There has to be a mistake. I mean, I was just getting used to the idea that there were 2 of these things. And now there's 3. I thought this would be easy.
So did we.
We discussed things over with Hershey yesterday, and Edith and I spent the last day investigating everyone we could think of, and have successfully narrowed the murderer down to 3 people. And, due to the evidence we found, 3 seems the most likely.
I retold them the story of what we found at the homestead in painstaking detail. There are 3 wind mages, and it's time we put them down.
Wait, we're not leaving yet? We're stopping these guys?
We're doing both. We're bringing them in and leaving in the same night. We've been going over a plan to put a sudden halt to these wind mages over the past 3 hours, and we believe we have the best plan we could think of on short notice. We need to act before they do. Remember, there are still targets.
I do remember. Believe me, it's not something I can forget. But I would appreciate if you guys would let me help you plan things. It makes me think you guys don't even want or need my help.
Couldn't be further from the truth. We wanted to include you, but you were busy keeping an eye on Terror, who is kind of in the middle of this whole thing. Besides, this plan centers around you. We're playing second fiddle to you on this one.
Are you serious? You being my backup?
I was skeptical at first, but after hearing the plan, I fully agree. Edith is telling the truth. You are easily our best hope to put a stop to the mages. Just don't mess this up. You'll get yourself killed, and well, it would be very inconvenient. For Edith. Not for me. For Edith. Friends.
I didn't have much time to teach you sword fighting, but try to remember what little I did teach you. I told you, one day you're going to come across someone who uses magic. Well, it's one day right now.
I don't know, but... I mean, why not, Edith?
Because the main purpose of this mission is to stop the people in danger from being in danger. That means ensuring that anyone who could be targeted by these wind mages is far, far away from the confrontation. Understand what I mean?
Yeah. I think I do.
Now, do you trust me? And I mean truly, truly trust me. I've been your best friend for over a decade, and you know I wouldn't lie to you. You know I would never hurt you on purpose. So, do you trust me, Alexander?
Edith never used my full first name unless she was deadly serious. Whatever she was about to tell me was something she 100% believed and had a reason to believe. What choice did I have? Yes, Edith. I trust you.
Good. Once we're done, let's come back, grab our stuff, and check out. So that being said, here's the plan.
Tara, come on, open the door!
I waited for a few moments after I knocked, processing what Edith had told me. It wasn't something easy to swallow, this task, as I knew it would be difficult for me, but truth is, Tara would only trust me with escorting her out of Sanderstill. The others would be abrasive or all around shady, even if they were being urgent. I needed to find a way to shut down my emotions before I gave away the urgency of what was going on. The door opened and Tara stood there, still in her work clothes, a lantern dimly lit in her hand.
Xander, what's going on?
Hey, Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you if I did, but... Well, I did mean to wake you, but
Hey, what's wrong? It's unlike you to be so ungathered. Did something happen?
Not yet, but... No. Nothing happened. I thought maybe you'd... Do you have walking shoes? I hear the forest is really serene on nights like these. I thought you might want to go for a walk with me.
It's past midnight.
Yeah, well, perfect time to catch the lightning bugs. Come on, put on your shoes. Let's get going.
Listen, I get work in the morning, and as much as I'd love for you to whisk me away, I gotta make sure I get my beauty sleep.
I love you.
What?
I love you. I've loved you since I saw you, and I want you to come with me to the forest.
Where in the world is this coming from?
The heart! Kiss me, you fool! Come with me while the night is still young.
The night isn't young, but we are. We have time to revisit this another night. And I'm gonna close the door before the draft gets in. Cool?
Come on, you know how many teenagers go off on romantic trysts at ungodly hours?
You being a teenager explains a lot, and makes me feel like a cradle robber. What are you, 18? Sheesh.
Come on, please. It'll be fun.
Sounds good. Another night, we'll do it. Good night.
She began closing the door, and I stuck my hand inside of it, preventing it from closing. She looked at me irritated.
Let go. I'm going to bed.
Tara, they're after you.
She stopped talking and stared a hole through me. I could see the confusion from the lantern's light.
After me. Who?
The murderers. The wind mages.
This isn't funny.
Do you think for one damn second I joke about this? I just got told by my people that the Wind Mages are coming back to Sanderstill tonight, and they still have a target. And I guarantee you are on their list. You have to come with me. I'm taking you to the next town.
What? No, this is my home. I can't just leave this place because you said so.
Then leave it because you don't want to die. Don't you get it? Your life is at stake. You might be willing to risk it, but I am not. Put on your shoes. We're leaving. If we leave now, we might be able to make it by morning. We'll get you a place to stay, and you can come back when we deal with them.
You can't do this to me. You can't rip me away from my home.
I'm not doing anything to you. I'm doing it for you. Please, Tara. I'm trying to save your life. You are going to die if you do not come with me.
Tara glared at me with anger and frustration, tears in her eyes. She knew she had to go, that she was in danger if she didn't leave. But I could see it was the last thing she wanted to do.
My whole life is here, Xander. Leaving it would mean starting over again.
You can come back when they're dealt with. It's not forever. And if they kill us, well, you'll be safe there. There's high security, they're very anti-magic. You started over once. You said it yourself. You're young. You can do it again.
She looked down at the ground, shaking her head sadly. She looked back into her home and sighed. She walked inside, put on shoes, grabbed a bag, and quickly filled it with clothing and important memorabilia. She walked outside and closed the door behind her.
Well then, hero, lead the way.
I know I sound like a broken record, but the air outside of town was chilly. And to this day, I don't know if it was actually cold or I was just scared out of my wits. Probably both. It was nerve-wracking. I was walking through a chilly forest in the dead of night with only a dim lantern to light my way. The moon was hidden in the dark clouds, which made it all the more menacing. I held Tara's hand tightly as she trailed behind me. I could hear her breath. It was heavier than mine.
How much further?
I'm no navigator, sorry. If I had to guess, maybe another hour at this pace.
I can't go another hour. I need rest.
We can't rest. If they catch us, we're dead.
We?
Well, yeah, but I'm not gonna leave your side, even in the face of death. Wouldn't be a night if I abandoned you, would I?
Stupid, but noble.
I'm nothing if not stupid and noble.
How do we know they won't find us in this forest?
We don't.
Then how do we know they're not right behind us?
We don't.
How do you know you caught the wind mages? Both of them.
3 of them.
Huh?
There are 3. One of them is from your village, and someone who's targeting you, so, yeah.
What? But our village stuck together so tightly. Why would anyone... Wait. I remember them. Why would they be after me now?
I don't know, and I don't really care. All I care about is getting you to safety before you get hurt.
We stepped quickly through the broken branches and grass. I kept my eyes peeled for any movement in sight. I wondered what the others were doing at that moment. I knew that they were getting ready to engage the murderer, but I missed them. Edith gave me the best reassuring looks at a time like this. Knowing I could be ambushed by a murdering wind mage at any second, the idea of getting sliced in half out of thin air was daunting. A gust of air blew through us from the side. At first I heard whistling of the wind and strangely intense gust and thought it was the mages, but it was just a harsh breeze. And while it wasn't strong enough to hurt either of us or stagger us, The lantern wasn't so lucky. The wind blew the lantern out and left us in darkness.
Oh, no, no, no! Damn it! You got a match?
I didn't pick up any.
Just our luck. Come on, as long as we walk straight, we'll be fine.
I dropped the lantern on the ground and kept walking. I grabbed my sword handle and held it tightly, ready to draw the blade if need be. I wondered, though, if my sword would withstand wind magic. Let's be honest, I didn't really want to test that hypothesis. I slowed my pace when I got to a clearing. Even though it was dark, it was a decently open space with a few trees here and there, as though it was deforested. There were a few small hills on the sides that almost seemed to spill into this pit in the middle. I looked around and decided it was safe to keep walking. As soon as I reached the middle, I heard a snap of a twig. Normally that'd be common for a forest, but this clearing was pure dirt and leaves, not a twig on the ground. I stopped dead in my tracks, and Tara did the same.
What is it?
Shh.
The chilling wind was picking up around me, and it almost felt like it was circling me. The very air around me was contemplating me like prey, like a fly caught in a spider's web. I stayed very still to try to listen to where it was coming from and where it was going. But I knew it was happening.
Xander, what's happening?
Shh. They're here.
A light rustle of leaves soothed and made me feel on edge somehow, as if the nature around me was stalking me. I didn't know where the mages were, and without a light, I likely wouldn't know until it was too late. Tara gripped onto my sleeve tightly, scanning the area around me. It was cold, but my neck felt hot from the nervousness. The breeze picked up. It was louder, and the wind howled in response. In the silence of night, it was almost deafening. I drew the sword from its sheath and held it with both hands, frantically whipped my eyes around. I knew if we stayed here, we were in danger, but if we moved, it might even be worse.
Tara, get ready to run for it. I'll hold them off.
What? Are you sure about this?
The wind apparently didn't care for that plan, because the moment I suggested it, the howling came to a screeching halt, like a snap of your fingers. I turned to her, curious to see if she understood, and from her expression, it was faintly lit in the moonlight. She even had less of an idea than I did. Then from behind me, I heard a creaking, almost like a door opening in an old manor. It seemed to come from a small group of trees in the darkness. I turned and squinted at it, trying to get a better view, but nothing. I decided to get a closer look. Too bad the noise beat me to the punch. A massive log flew at us from the darkness in a flash.
Fuck! Down now!
I pushed Tara down behind me and readied my blade as quick as I could, swung it upwards. The massive trunk barreled toward me, and just as it was about to crunch my bones, it split right in half down the middle. Each of the sides of the logs rolled behind me on each side. After they stopped rolling, I let out a sigh from my chest and fell to one knee. Tara quickly got up and grabbed my arm.
Xander, are you okay? That was amazing.
Yeah, I guess it was. You alright, Tara?
I am, thanks to you.
Come on, Tara, you give me way too much credit. I mean, look at the sword.
I showed her the edge of the blade closely, the moon glistening off its sheening edge. There were no shavings or chunks on the blade whatsoever. It was perfectly clean.
I mean, if I did it, don't you think there'd be some physical evidence of that? And I mean, look at the logs.
I pointed to the logs, and just like the sword, there were no shavings or splinters. They were split evenly right down the middle, as if the reality around them split.
No weapon did that, Tara. No, only a wind mage could do something like that. And considering if the direction of the cut came in front of me, well, it would have cleaved me as well. Nope, and had to have come from behind me.
And because of my position to the log at the time it was cut, it would have had to come from someone very close behind me, who was also on the ground.
What are you saying?
Isn't it obvious? I'm saying busted. Murderer. Even in the dead of night, I could see Tara's expression grow pale. I pulled away from her reach and impaled my sword into the ground, ready to remove it if need be. She stared at me, cautiously and nervously. She slowly pulled herself to her feet, keeping her eyes on me.
You think I'm the Wind Mage? Are you crazy? Those bastards destroyed my home!
I'm not saying you're lying about that. I'm saying you're the one who did it. You said that every single person that donned this amulet was a target. Every victim we found had that amulet. And quite frankly, you were in plain sight. No way you wouldn't have been targeted first if it weren't you.
How could I have done it?
You tell me. You're the one who did it.
I have no goddamn idea what you're talking about.
Don't you?
Those people were killed by the Wind Mages, not me! I couldn't have killed all of them!
That's just simply not true, baby doll.
Tara whipped around to see Edith planting a bright torch in the ground, bringing some vibrance to the clearing. She looked scared and outraged. Edith leaned on the tree.
First guy we found a few weeks ago, went by the name Henry Fowler. I'm judging by your change of expression just now that you know that name. He was in town looking for work when he spotted you and tried to silently leave, but you knew better than to let him go. You chased him down near the river and cornered him. He begged for his life, and when you refused, he attacked you in desperation, causing your blood to get under his nails. Explains the light scars on your arm there. You did your whole song and dance, threw a wind blade in his direction, and chopped his arm off like it was a slab of ham. Let him bleed out and die.
Then there was the man in the wolf's den.
Tara turned to see Iron coming from another direction, lighting a torch of her own. Her face became more and more distressed and her hair grew disheveled.
A hunter. A John Doe. You tracked him for days before you struck. Made sure to follow his every path and pounce when you knew he'd be alone. You decided you knew best, did you not? You decided that you had every right to be the judge of his worthiness on life, and you found him wanting. You cut his leg off with the intent to torture him, but then the wolves showed up, and you let them eat him alive. A cruel, cold way to kill someone. But I suppose that's your specialty, isn't it?
Last but not least, the old two places at once trick.
Tara slowly turned to Phineas, her expression becoming more frantic and primal by the minute. She looked ready to explode.
I have to hand it to you. This one was quite the puzzle to solve. You had your friends hunt down a young lady trying to make ends meet. They missed anything that would have killed her on the spot, and she evaded them until she found a homestead where she died of blood loss. Then you had the men completely eradicate everything in sight to destroy the evidence. Pity they left more evidence than they destroyed. Then you decided to go on your lonesome and kill the two fishermen single-handedly. You snuck up on them as they reminisced on the good old days and cut them apart like they were mincemeat. You had every opportunity to kill these people, and as a double check, we confirmed you have an alibi for every single hour of every single day we've been here. except during the times of the killings.
Does that answer your question? Tara's arms fell to her sides, her short hair covering her eyes in the night. She stared off into blank space for a few moments before everyone approached her. She looked up at the moon and sighed.
And now, Beguile, you can come out now. Don't attack.
The sound of rustling leaves stirred around us as two large men emerged from the darkness, their hands at the ready to cast spells. Neither of them were very handsome. Many scars coated their faces, and their clothing was ragged. They donned the same amulet that Tara did. I eyed each of them cautiously. They were described by that crazy woman perfectly, both of them tall, muscular, one bald with a long beard, and the other with long hair and no beard.
He's up, you two. It's fine. It's over.
On command, their hands lowered and they fell into their calm stance. They didn't speak. I eyed them before I saw movement from Tara turning toward us.
Very well. You guys are really talented detectives. Really. We are the Wind Mages of Sanderstill.
I took a deep breath and exhaled. Edith still leaned on the tree. Irene stood still, her face stalwart, her arms at her sides. Phineas cautiously eyed the men around us, his arms behind his back. Tara smiled sadly, almost laughing.
Well, we were anyways. I suppose this is the end of that journey. We'll have to go somewhere else now. Pity. I really liked it here.
Tara, you can't just go somewhere else. You basically committed genocide. Why do you think we just let you go?
Because it's best for everyone here if you do. Believe me, we both want the same thing. We both want you to walk out of here alive. And we both want an end to the blood on my hands. We can accomplish both of those things together if we walk in separate directions and not look back.
Law doesn't work that way, lady. You can't just dismiss yourself of murder charges because, oh, I'm done now. That doesn't happen. You're dreaming if you think it does.
Who said anything about me being done?
It was assumed you would be, considering we caught you. It's over, Tara. Time to sleep in the bed you made.
Sorry, no can do. There's still people from Woolheart that are alive. And that can't happen.
Volhart, you say?
Yes, we're famous for a locust swarm. You probably heard about that.
Nope. First I've heard of it.
We're still in Vespiran jurisdiction. I'm a sergeant with the Knights from Vespira, and you just admitted to murder and intent to keep going. This is open and shut.
Please, before you do something really stupid, let me tell you my story. It's not every day a murder tells you why, right?
Is that a threat, little human?
Who are you calling little? You're shorter than me. Besides, it's not a threat. It's a warning. You outnumber us, but we vastly overpower you. You have what? A chef, a sergeant, a little girl with horns, and an old mage.
Excuse you?
I was given a nomination for an archmage when I was 15 years old, and I only know wind magic. These two men here, they're just as powerful as I am when you put them together. Your body parts would be dust and wind by the time anyone found out you were missing. So I implore you, listen to what I have to say, and then decide what you want to do.
We exchanged glances. Meanwhile, keeping an eye on the two mages on the outside. We figured if we angered her, she might attack, so we decided it was valid if we listened. Tell us everything. Leave nothing out.
You don't know how long I've waited to hear that, to be heard. I've lived with this albatross over me for a few years, and I tell ya, All I really wanted is for someone to listen. To listen and understand. Forget everything I told you about Woolheart. So let's start from the beginning. Woolheart was a town of wind mages. The entire population practiced wind magic. At least, most of us who had magical potential. We taught kids at a young age about wind magic as a means of defense, just in case things were to go south in the wind. Fortunately, that didn't happen very much. We were very out of the way of civilization. Over time, I grew close to my uncles. That's them over there. They don't speak, but their actions spoke clear to me ever since I was young. My father was never home, and my mother... I was never told what happened to her. Never thought to ask, considering no one really knew their mothers in our village. Which I later found out. There is a distinct reason for that. You probably don't know this about Woolheart, but we don't like outsiders. Not the creepy chop you up and eat you kind, but the please leave ASAP kind. If someone was a traveler, they could stay exactly one night, but would be asked to leave. And even then, they'd get mean looks the entire time they were there. The reason why is because the higher-ups in my village didn't want you to find out about what was really going on there. Really just dark shit. You weren't there, but when a girl hits about a certain age in Woolheart, they were cast out. That was how they said it. Some sort of spiritual journey to live on their own bunch of bullshit.
Why? Because they weren't on a journey?
No, because they weren't fucking cast out. Those bastards kept the women of my village in chains the moment they turned 16. They kept them in chains, kept them nude, and kept them completely docile so those fucking pigs could do whatever they wanted to them. They used the women of my village like fucking broom hairs to dump their disgusting seed into. Every time I remember the first time I saw that place, I want to vomit. I turned 16. You can probably guess what happened then. My father led men into my room and they shackled me. They carried me to the prison with the rest of them, and I remember feeling so much dread. So much. I can't even begin to convey what I felt. This hopelessness and disgust. They tried to touch me and I ripped away from them. I broke my shackles and ran to my uncles. I told them everything, and they looked sad. I found out they objected to my imprisonment, and as a result they were exiled. Isn't that just a fitting punishment for men trying to do the right thing? I ran to the village elder and pleaded with him to let me leave with them, but he declined. He said that the village's survival depended on me letting these I have no words for them. These pigs could touch me wherever and violate me whenever they chose. And I had to bear their children, just like the rest of the women. I was reshackled and taken back to the prison. On my way there, I watched as the only two people who cared for me were being forcefully removed from my home. And I was being sold into a life of slavery by the people who I called family. Men I grew up around, who taught me magic, who employed me to do jobs for them, who I regarded as a friendly neighbor. All queued up to test the newest prize. These men, who once treated me as a child not but months ago, now sought to violate me in any way they saw fit. I begged, pleaded with them to let me go, to let me run away, and I'd promised I'd never tell anyone, but they grabbed me and ripped my clothing. And I just snapped. I just exploded. I ripped my shackles off using magic, and used said magic to kill my attackers. And I kept casting, and casting, and casting, and casting, and casting, and casting until they were all dead. I kept slicing until they were a red smear and a painful memory. I tried to celebrate with the other women, but they were catatonic from years of abuse. I knew that they'd never live again. I did what was humane, and I executed all of them. I walked out of the prison covered in blood, and I shouted to the people of the village the deeds of those bastards. I let them all know what was happening, and it was time to rise up. I swore I'd lead these people to freedom, and we do it by slaying the wicked. But all of them, every single one of them, knew. They known all along. Every detail. They known the women of the village were used like toys for these men to play with, and they did nothing. They either stood back and turned away, or they fucking joined them. I knew that everyone was in on it. Everyone was in on this slavery culture. And I had to be the emancipator. My father tried to calm me by explaining everyone in the village was a spawn of this culture. This idea that men can come and go as they please and the women can never leave. They have to take it all, and if they complain, they'd only get ignored. My father tried to justify it in the middle of the street by saying I was born that way. That he, my mother, the very last shred of mercy in me, vanished. Every single last one of them had to die. I let fly spell after spell, ripping them all to shreds before they could dare defend themselves. And even the ones who fought back were no match for my skill. And my rage. My uncles heard the commotion. They came to my aid. They never left. They stayed outside the village waiting to save me. And there they were, helping me cleanse and purge the corruption of Woolheart. It started innocently enough. The men in the village that tried to hurt me, and the women who were far too gone to be saved. Then villagers tried to justify it to me, and I killed them as well. Then, children tried to stop me. Brothers, uncles, fathers, and sons all pleaded with me to stop, but their cries were only silenced when I silenced them eternally. I killed them. I killed them all. No matter who they were, what they'd done. They met the swift end of my windblade. Woolheart, drowned in blood. I left after that. I noticed many of the survivors left. Even the girls who were close to being of age. But they had to die as well. They were never supposed to live anyways, so what's the harm? No one born of Woolheart's disgusting acts could ever be suffered to live. And that is why I killed them.
It was silent. Only the crackling of flame and crickets could be heard in the middle of the silent forest. Tara looked despondent, as if reliving those memories again. The pain she'd endured was far worse than that of mine. I lost my father in a horrific accident, but she never had anyone to begin with. Those two men that flanked her tried to save her from a horrific fate, and still couldn't save her from the trauma that she'd experienced. Edith had her eyes closed, the pain of the story palpable. Even Iron and Phineas seemed affected by the story.
So, now you know. Now, somebody knows. And I think it's better that way.
It is. People should know the evils that Walhart perpetuated. And the evils inflicted upon the innocents of that town.
What innocence? They were all in on it, all of them. How could you sit there and listen to what I have to say and be convinced otherwise?
Tara, you killed some very, very bad people. People who traumatized you and
Who knows, maybe deserve to die. The men of that village tried to enslave you and abuse you, and you didn't let them. You defended yourself. We all understand that.
Yes, I did. Thank you.
But not everyone you killed was a bad person.
What?
Tara, as a woman, I sympathize. The hopelessness you felt, I understand. Being seen as a piece of meat to be drooled over is a disgusting feeling you want to scrape away, as if it sticks to your skin. And while many of the men you killed were trying to assault you, you admitted to killing children, innocent little boys and girls who didn't know any better. All they saw was someone covered in blood killing their families, and begged them to stop. And you killed them. You stopped a horrible nightmare from continuing, but you also didn't let those children have a chance at life. They could have been like you, like your uncles, and rose against the traditions. But because of your actions, your rage, they will never have that chance.
What are you saying?
You were justified in killing some of them, but not all of them. I'm sorry, Tara. You're a victim, but you're not an innocent one. I have to place you under arrest.
What? No, I'm not going anywhere. I was right to do what I did. How could you say otherwise?
Tara, you killed far too many innocent people to let this slide. Just because you're being arrested doesn't mean you're going to die in prison. I can help you. I can help plead that you were under intense mental distress and you snapped, causing you to not see the difference between a threat and the innocent. And we can minimize your sentence, same as your uncle's. You'd be looking at only 40 years in prison.
40 years? I could die before then. I'm not...
Tara, it's over! You killed them. They're dead. It's enough, isn't it? You've shed so much blood already. You've endured so much pain already. It's enough. Please. Just let this end. No one needs to get hurt here.
I approached her and hesitantly put a hand on her shoulder. She flinched slightly.
I will help you. I will visit you. I will do everything I can to get you where your mind needs to be. Please. Let this end.
Tara stared at me sadly for a long time, as if weighing her options, then looked forward and nodded glumly. Edith released a soft, relieved sigh and walked over next to me. Tara turned away and put her arms behind her back. I looked at Iron and she looked at me. I smiled sadly and she nodded back at me. It was finally time to move on from this nightmare. It was time to get Iron back home. Edith approached her and patted her on the shoulder, and Nara nodded, looking down. Edith slowly and gently applied the shackles to Tara. I patted Edith softly on the arm, holding it there. She acknowledged me, nodding. I looked at Tara. I was sad she'd been hurt so badly, but her actions were not forgivable, simply put. I hoped she'd find peace in prison, Same as her uncles. I meant what I said about wanting this to end. For the victims on both sides. I looked down at the shackles being applied as Edith was finishing up, and I noticed something. Tara's fingers. The right ring finger was bent, as well as her index finger, and her thumb was pressed tightly against her fingers. I squinted, and just briefly, I saw it. A spark of wind. My eyes shot open, and out of instinct, I pushed Edith as hard as I could with my left hand. And in that same moment, Tara whipped around and swung her arm up in a slicing motion. Right through my wrist. It happened so fast back then. Less than a second, but I remember it now. Feels like it lasted years. I saw it before I felt it. I didn't feel a thing until I saw my left hand. And it wasn't attached to my wrist anymore.
What the fuck?
Good lord!
You weren't supposed to... Fuck!
I fell to the ground and saw my hand in the dirt. My left wrist was gushing and squirting blood, and the horror overwhelmed me. I let fly a terrified scream, and my friends rushed to my side. Edith ripped her cape and tied it around my wound as quick as she could. Phineas looked around him and noticed all three of them were in a fighting stance.
Damn it! We've got problems. I'm going to need some help. I can't do this on my own.
How about you give me a fucking second?
You don't have a second. Get the hell up or they're going to kill us.
Alexander!
Fuck! I can't!
What were you trying to do? I wasn't even gonna aim at you, just the knight, and then I was gonna make a run for it. Now look what I have to do. I have to kill all four of you. Do you know how badly I didn't want to do that?
You are a fucking monster! What the fuck is wrong with you, you psychotic bitch?
The other mages circled us, ready to strike. Things were looking dire. I lost a hand. Iron refused to fight. Edith didn't know magic, and Phineas couldn't take all of them at once.
You won't even live to regret those words.